What is the average age of an MEP? Is it 35, 48 or 53?
I don't think MEPs are that young, so it's not 35.
I go with 53.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, such a pity.
How many MEPs are there in the European Parliament? Is it 701, 705 or 723?
705.
Very good. Can you tell me, is the official seat of the European Parliament in Brussels, Luxembourg or Strasbourg?
Luxembourg.
Brussels.
Strasbourg for sure, and Brussels as well.
Very good. The main seat is in Strasbourg and secondary in Brussels. Do you know when the next European elections will be held?
Next year?
Do you know the dates, months?
Is it June next year? I don't know the dates.
The 6th to the 9th of June 2024.
Fantastic. Tell me, what values do you associate with Europe?
I associate it with democracy, with pluralism and with respect.
Equality, a lot of people, and stability, and just the development of my country.
Democracy mostly, so collaboration, communication.
Diversity, unity, mobility, and acceptance.
Oh, so many. So things like togetherness, solidarity, like particularly coming together in a crisis. So we've kind of seen that from like COVID and the war in Ukraine, and just kind of really putting aside sort of nationalism, coming to work together on a European level, and also equality.
Unity, diversity, and I would say it's a value, rule of law.
Have you ever benefited from any EU funding or programs such as Erasmus+? And how does that impact your life?
Well, I was a participant a few times in Erasmus+.
I've actually never. I'm quite recent in the youth sphere.
Indirectly, yes. So I've been part of multiple European organizations, most of which function using some kind of European fund.
I get a lot of local funding in my youth group. So we get funding for, most recently, we got funding for a documentary for Ireland's 50 years in the EU. We got access to, we got new equipment for our youth group. We got access to different trainings and things. I also obviously get to go places like here.
Can you tell me, how does like Erasmus impact young people's lives, I guess?
I think it opens up their minds and it broadens their vision of the world by getting in touch with people with whom they would not normally interact because they are outside of their local bubble.
Experiencing a different culture, getting to know people who you just might not have crossed paths with in different parts of your life, and just having that kind of greater awareness of the world around you, and also learning about yourself.
In what ways do you engage politically and civically in your day-to-day life?
I'm part of TEO, the World Esperanto Youth Organization.
I work with an organization called the European Youth Forum. We're the largest platform of youth organizations in the world, and we represent youth organizations in Europe.
I'm a trainer for the National Youth Council, so that's one way.
When it comes to like activism and external relations, we mostly talk about language rights and basically how language is important for citizens to access their basic human rights.
Through my association, that it's YEF, that it's Young European Federalist in Spain, but I also participate in activities politically, so debates, events or other youth activities.
Back in Malta, I'm Director for Health, so it's very important for me to be involved in all aspects of health, specifically within the realm of queer rights.
I'm trying to encourage my friends and encourage myself to vote.
Do you think the voting age should be lowered for European elections?
Yes, I think it should be. I'm in favor of this voting for at 16.
It would encourage young people to turn out democratically much earlier. It would encourage them to engage at a point which I think keeps them engaged for life.
Youth are the present and the future, and this is very true. So I don't think it's people around the age of over 50 that should decide for us.
What advice would you give to a first-time voter or someone considering voting?
First of all, think about yourself. Just think, what do you want? Don't hear the others. That is very important. And vote carefully with head and inform you a lot. First read, inform you, and then vote.
So I think the really important thing for a first-time voter, any voter, is just to be engaged, to inform yourself of the candidates before you vote. So whether that's looking at candidates' websites, whether it's looking at their manifesto material, or summaries that are put together by different organisations in your country, it's so that when you show up to vote, you're not looking at the candidates for the first time on the ballot paper and trying to pick someone.
Can you tell me what are the main obstacles that young people might face when they participate in politics?
I think one that happened to me also is disinformation.
Especially if we talk about European politics, young people, like many citizens actually, are not necessarily well informed about how the EU functions, the councils and the parliament and everything.
Clearly, we have a lot of people that are older making policies that impact us, but not with a language that we can sometimes understand.
I guess information and outreach.
And then have spaces
to participate. Many citizens, including young people, don't feel necessarily represented by institutions.
I think sometimes that the political parties and also the sort of national administrations don't do enough to encourage young people to get into politics, to become active, not alone just to vote, but to see themselves as future candidates and also future parliamentarians.
What do you think are the main issues that the EU should address in the upcoming years?
So for sure, making that all countries just take the law very serious.
Refugees and war is probably a really big one at the moment.
Overregulation is an issue that detaches the normal population from what the EU is, and that's an issue.
I think it should mainly address democratic backsliding and equal access to opportunities.
We've noticed in like the last couple of years, there's been a lot of backslides and a lot of terrible things happening to different minority groups, so probably something to prevent that.
Figuring out kind of how the EU kind of works in the context of sort of enlargement and having more countries in. So how do we make decisions? How do we make sure that that's for the kind of greater good? Are there ways that decision making could be simplified, particularly to take forward really important EU values?
The last question I have is, do you plan on voting in the next European elections?
Yes, so I do.
Of course. What kind of a question is that?
Yes, I'm voting.
Of course.
Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
Of course I do.
Yeah, for sure I will do.
Of course, it's my responsibility.
Well, I've voted for any elections ever since I was of age, so I have no reason not to vote next year.
I just turned 18, so it'll be one of my first times voting and my first time voting in an EU.
So I unfortunately can't because I don't have the right nationality, but I would encourage everybody else to because it's very important.
Absolutely. And I don't plan on going alone. I plan on taking all of my friends, relatives, whoever wants to join me, because I think we need to. And I think as young people, we've seen this kind of uprising in the voter turnout in 2019 for young people, and having campaigns to increase voter turnout which were led by young people, and I found that super inspiring as a person who didn't have the right to vote in 2019. So I definitely will be voting, and I'm encouraging everyone to go out and vote. It only happens once every 5 years, so this really is our chance to make our voice heard.